So here we are, Wednesday the 27th of February, and I got an email from Apple Podcasts, and I'm sure lots of other people have had them too, and if you haven't had yours, then it will be arriving at some point. Now, it's Apple are on their continuing effort to update the quality of the information attached to podcasts within their directory. And so this email is about optimizing your show's metadata and the fact that you can also submit your RSS feed if it's turned down. So these changes are also affecting existing podcasts. Now, last year there was a real panic on where Apple decided that they wanted to get rid of the keyword spamming activities that were going on in terms of the show title and the author name. Those are the two searchable fields, so that people were putting all sorts in there. So even high profile podcasts were actually taken down who were doing that too, and they all had to be fixed, and then they were back in again. So Apple will take your podcast down. Now there's other things in here as well, but there is actually in this letter, as we can see here, we've got 4 things to avoid. Make sure that whatever text you have in there, you do actually put in your own description, your own text. So don't just leave whatever your hosting provider may have put in your description. Okay, so you need to make sure that your description is describing the podcast. One thing here which I hadn't realised, and it's actually something that I'd started doing and right back at the start, and I don't know why. I obviously read it from somewhere. So the verbatim repetition of the title or the author name in the description. So I actually had that, and that's something I do need to go and change. Irrelevant content or spam in show titles or the author name, like was mentioned, some examples there, and adding episode numbers in titles. Quite a while ago now, Apple did add separate tags for episode number and for seasons, and I've kept advising that people do not put episode numbers in their titles. Now, I'm in several podcasting groups, and there seems to be quite a lot of panic about this, and people are really focusing in on this thing about episode numbers. So, and as they say at the bottom there, these practices could result in your show being rejected or removed from Apple Podcasts. And they have taken podcasts out before. They did a lot last year, even high profile ones. So beware. There is some help resources in there. But what I wanted to do was I actually use Libsyn for my podcast and recommend that clients use Libsyn as well. And they have some really professional level features even at their lower packages. So I wanted to actually just go through and show you that, particularly for fixing the episode number problem, if you've got episode numbers in titles, there is quite a nice, quick and easy way to fix that. It's not the massive job that you may be thinking it is. So let's hop over to Libsyn and we'll see some of the features in there that you may not have come across. Okay, so here we are on the dashboard. I'm using my own podcast to show you a couple of things that you need to pay attention to. So first of all, you can go into content and previously published, and that shows you all of your podcast episodes. For some of these things, what you may not ever have noticed or used is the iTunes tag bulk editor. So let me just show you that first. Libsyn are reiterating the some of the rules there, and this basically just lists mine are all listed by release date, and I know that I am not currently including episode numbers in, and to be honest, I only did it twice. Okay, but I've just left this now to fix to show you how you can do it. You may want to just change it for iTunes, in which case in Libsyn we have separate fields for our iTunes things. So for some reason it's not even in there, so I'll just cut and paste to get rid of the... So that's it fixed there for iTunes, And again, I'll do this other one. I know there was only these two. So that'll be those fixed in iTunes. Now, the other thing is we have these separate fields, again for iTunes, Apple Podcasts, within Libsyn here, the separate fields. So we've also got season number and episode number. Now, I don't use seasons, so that I haven't filled in, and some of these I have manually filled them in myself, but there's a couple missing. So I only have, when I scroll through, there's the odd one missing here and there, but most of them are complete. So it's worth my while to just go in here and say update that for a 2, update that for a 3, and so forth. 5, why number 6 was missing. Next one's not an actual episode, it's just an audio file, and so forth. So that's that little problem sorted out. If you're using seasons, then you can use the season field within there as well. And then we also have here the type. What type of episode is it? Is it full? Is it a trailer? Or is it some kind of bonus? So mine all need to be set to full. And again, there's a couple here that are not. So I'll come down. That's not an episode anyway, and the rest are, obviously I'm going to come back and check all these in detail, but I just wanted to show you that particular feature there. So that will update those. Now there's some tools here that you may find handy as well, and again may not have noticed. So I'm just looking at my first episode here, but I'll click on tools, and this really does let you do some bulk updating as well. So we can see here we've got copy season number to all episodes after this episode. So you could do some bulk updating of season number if you needed to, if you're just on episode 1 for example. You can automatically set the episode numbers for all episodes after this episode. So I'm on episode 1, and then it would just go through, if you hadn't used them at all, then it would just go through and increment them 1, 2, 3 and so on. And the other thing as well is copy episode type to all episodes after this episode. So I've set this one now to be full, so I can just click on that and it will set all of those episodes to full. So that's one way of just quickly making sure that all of your titles can be fixed quickly and easily, and also set your episode numbers if you haven't set them. That is easy to do when you're using Libsyn and you go into the bulk updater, and as we scroll through, all of the episodes all the way through are there, and at the very bottom we can click save. That's why I wanted to scroll all the way down. Okay, so click save. Great. So that's that little problem solved. Now it also may be that you want to check some of those other pieces of data that you can't do within this bulk updater. So then we need to go into, again, content and previously published. So here we are back on our previously published content. Now, I know for the early episodes it can be quite difficult to get you may not have quite decided how you're going to create your titles and descriptions and kind of make it up as you go along. So particularly I know I want to go and review some of my first episodes particularly, so I'm going to go to last page there, and here we are. We have a couple of episodes here. Now you may wonder why this title hasn't changed. Remember, that was the iTunes Apple Podcast bulk updater. There's separate fields within Libsyn to cope with everything else and with Apple Podcasts. So if I want this title to be changed everywhere and not just for Apple Podcasts, then I need to come in here and do each one. So if you click on the little pencil and go onto details, then I can come in here and change the episode title. There we are. Take that away there. And then the other thing that I'd put in there, which now looking at those rules is not a good idea, is I did have the title as the first line of my description. I can't remember why I even started doing that. I must have read it somewhere. Somebody else must have suggested it. So let's get rid of that. And then I think I also need to get rid of some of these other keywords in there. Let's get rid of those. And the rest is absolutely fine as it is. Now, the other thing that you may want to come and review for each of your episodes is then to actually make sure that the iTunes fields, the Apple Podcast fields, are actually fully filled in. So we have the title. Remember, I'd already fixed that, but you may well want to create a summary, and I would often take some of the information that I have written down here, and I would create that and make a description out of it as well. You can see we've got too many characters there, so again there's a limit of 512 characters here, so some of this we need to edit down. I won't bore you with the details, but we can see that the iTunes author here is blank, so that needs to be fixed. Okay, and then we would just save that, click down and publish, and it updates all of the fields. Click the ID3 tags, so everything then just gets updated. So you can then go through each of your episodes. If you think, yes, I have been maybe repeating the title of the podcast in the first line of description, things like that, go through and check each one. And yes, it may seem like an absolute pain, but I think that is preferable to do that rather than get your podcast thrown out, and Apple Podcasts do that. If this is something that you want some help with, then of course if you get in touch with me at info@podcastprogress.com, then that's something I would be delighted to help you with. And any of the other strategic items of setting up a podcast and launching one.